Welcome to the Covered Podcast. I am your host, Mya Karren, and on this show, we talk about women and how we are showing up in the world. So I would like to welcome Aly Masters. Today's guest is Aly Masters, CEO of BioCurlz. With her company, she seeks to help women embrace their natural hair with simple hair care products. Aly is a content creator, a wife, and a pianist. Please welcome Aly Masters.
Hi.
Hello. You know I have been waiting to have this conversation.
I'm excited.
So first things first. I saw your video, and I believe it's titled, It's Done. So let's take a look.
You're going to get your hair done for the event. It's done. Maybe you should straighten. It's done. I just think it would look, it's done. Maybe if you just, it's done. So you're just going to leave it like that? It's done. It just will look really, it's done. Yes, it's done. Thank you. Thank you.
So I saw it. I loved it. I reposted it, but then I thought to myself, there's a story here. So growing up, how were you wearing your hair?
Growing up, I was wearing my hair when I was between the ages of like 5 to, I would say 10. I was rocking the natural hair, but it was always up. It was always out of my face. And that was a lot dealing with just the fact that my mom and the nanny who also raised me, because my mom was never home, she's a doctor, so she high risk obstetrics, so she was delivering babies. And so neither of them knew really how to truly take care of my hair. So the easiest thing to do was just to put it up in a high puff, which I loved. I wanted it to be super high though. It had to sit on the very top of my head. I was very particular about that.
Okay, so you said that your mother was a doctor and there was a nanny. Was there a father figure in the picture?
Yes, for a little bit. Okay. So I'm originally adopted, so I don't know my biological parents at all. My mom and I, though, are twins, and she's from Jamaica, and the sweetest woman in the entire world. She's absolutely brilliant. So when people see us, they're like, there's no way that you're adopted. So it really is one of those, like, God works in mysterious ways. And so she originally adopted me with my, I guess, her first husband and my dad, James, who passed away. And so they actually ended up getting a divorce, and I did not spend a lot of time with him. So, I mean, at that age, it was just my mom and my nanny, who was like my grandmother. And so it was just us girls for a long time. And then my dad, Bill, came into the picture, who also legally adopted me. And that was, that was maybe 2014, I want to say. So, yeah.
So, and I feel like this will play a role a little bit into the interview or into the episode that we're having the conversation. Yeah. You said that you and your mother are twins. What is the demographics, if you don't mind me asking? Because when I was looking you up, I saw in the photo, I believe you appear to be a Caucasian man.
Yes.
He's Caucasian, okay.
Yes.
What is your mother and what are you?
So my mom she's Black, Jamaican. There's Irish that runs in her family as well. And then for myself, I don't know the full details. I know Black and white. And I did do the DNA ancestry, but I haven't hopped on there because I was receiving messages saying that they have found family members, and I'm just not in a place
I'm not there yet.
I'm not there yet.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, do you feel like, because you are biracial, do you feel like that played a role in how your hair was being styled? Were there any comments? Do you feel like you were being treated differently?
So I went to school in private school, predominantly white students. And so my hair at that point was still in its full natural state. I wasn't straightening it yet. That didn't start until, I would say, like late middle school. But when I was still in middle school and like the earlier stages, my hair was super curly, but kept in pigtail braids a majority of the time. No one commented on my hair, whether it was family or students at school. I would say the comments didn't start until I actually started straightening it, and it would appear poofy because it was never like fully straight, and it would always kind of puff up, and the frizz would start to kick in. And if it was raining, it's a wrap. It was a wrap.
Since you were talking about that, I'm going to interject here. Have you heard of the new term cotton press?
I have not.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. What is that?
So basically, like I said, and I talked about this in my video, but there was a new term that was going viral on TikTok. Basically, it's a cotton press. I was not aware that we were quantifying presses, but it's basically like a silk press, and then like right below that is a cotton press. And basically, they're talking about how it's not silky. I personally think we can find a better term for a cotton press. we've had the conversation before. Clearly, we both like big hair. But I was just wondering if you had heard about the new cotton press term.
I have not, and that's heartbreaking.
It is. It is.
I honestly, when I see silk presses, though, I prefer the more like bigger, fluffed out look.
Yes. Let's go back to, so you talked about middle school. You were wearing the puff and then you were wearing the pigtails. Let's talk about, I'm assuming it's high school. Is that when you started doing your own hair? When did you start doing your own hair and how were you wearing it?
So it was definitely, I would say 10th grade. That's when I started getting the straightener out. My mom was doing it prior and I would be like, just straighten it for me, straighten it for me. In middle school, that was like I would say like 7th and 8th grade is when she was helping me with it. 10th grade is when I started doing it completely myself. And that's when I started experimenting with hair dye and bleach. And I still was using a relaxer at that point. And that it kind of went downhill. I got a little excited about the bleach. I was wanting to, I would say, fit a beauty norm at that time. All of my friends were predominantly white, so I definitely had the urge to have a lot of blonde highlights and my hair always be super, super straight. So that was how I wore it a lot of the time.
What's the confidence there?
The confidence there. So basically at that time, kind of what was my mindset with the confidence? Oh, okay. So this stems from my adoption and my childhood, but my confidence level was very low my entire life. And that's because I didn't feel worthy, not wanted. So I had this weird fear of rejection and people-pleasing tendencies. So people would stay. And so people would want to spend time with me. So I would say my confidence level was very low. I spent a lot of time in the mirror. I spent a lot of time pulling at my hair and wishing my hair looked a different way. I always compared myself to my friends and the guys that at that time when we were like dating, they would always be like, oh, like you're pretty for a black girl. Your hair is poofy. It's kind of cute. And there was always like these side comments that I would hear a lot. And so I would become even more self-conscious about it. And so at that time, I would say my confidence level was really none. I would still show up to the best of my ability, but during the day, different times of day, I would be thinking about like, is my hair looking okay? I need to run to the bathroom and look at it. Do I need to flatten it down? Is it poofing up? So I would feel calm or collected about myself. There was always like an anxiety about surrounding my beauty.
So talk to me about your friend group. Was there any different behavior or were there any comments?
No, when it came to my friend group in high school, very different, obviously from college, but I will say my friend group was very caring, loving, understanding, and my hair was never a topic of discussion unless I made it one, and a lot of the times it was me being anxious about it being like the humidity outside, or if it was raining, or if I was going to a pool or the beach. Is when I would always get very anxious and like people would be like, are you not swimming? And I'd have to figure out a way to kind of say like, I don't want to get my hair wet.
Especially the humidity. All naturals are aware of humidity.
Yes.
We're all aware of that. So take us back to that aha moment. And I remember you talking about it in your video. And what I mean by aha is that you look up one day and you're like, this is not right. Take me back to that moment.
That aha moment was a painful one, which is what actually paved the path for my natural hair journey. So I ended up bleaching and relaxing my hair in the same week.
We know that's a known. Did you do it in the same day?
Not the same day.
Okay.
Yeah. Same week. Yes, right. And so again, though, at that point too, neither my mom and I, we had no idea, understanding the chemical reactions about relaxers and mixing with dyes. And, so at that point I was just having fun. And it happened right before I was leaving for college. And I mean like 2 days type of vibe. So I had my hair bleached and then I ended up going in with the relaxer. And when I hopped in the shower to rinse it out, my hair fell down my arms in clumps and you could hear the splat on the bottom of the shower floor.
So the hair was just falling.
Falling, yeah.
Like as if you just taken scissors through it.
Correct.
It was just falling.
Just falling. And I can't describe that feeling. Like what I was feeling it was disturbing. It was like everything stopped. And my heart was racing and I remember it just like beating out of my chest and I started screaming and I couldn't stop rinsing it out though. Like it had to come out. So I just figured, you know what, let me just keep rinsing it out. I screamed for my mom. She came in when I rinsed it out and my hair was, gone. It was all the way up past above my ears and I had breakage. I had some hair that was patchy, some that was a little long. And it was in that moment that I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And I looked at my mom and she was like, you know what? you're leaving for school in a few days. Let's go ahead and let's see what we can do about maybe a sew-in, or we can get a wig. Like, we'll figure it out. And that's when I ended up having to temporarily wear wigs and sew-ins until my hair kind of started to grow back.
Okay. And we spoke about the confidence level, and we spoke about it in your friend group and when you were in high school, how your hair was straight.
Yeah.
So when you got the wig, what type of wig was it? Was it textured? Was it straight?
When I first started out with the wigs, it was straight. That's what made me feel more safe and comfortable. And at that point too, I didn't really know what my hair texture was. Like,
right,
I spent years just straightening it. So I was kind of scared to find out. And I said, you know what, I'm going to college. I want to have a certain look about me, and I'm just not ready to experiment yet with my hair. So I was like, I'm going to do what's comfortable. And that was just rocking the straight hair. And I did that for the entirety, actually, of me being in college. So the whole 4 years that I was there.
Okay, so that was the wigs and it was still straight. You said you weren't comfortable. Was the wig the entire time? Were you still growing your hair out, or did you begin straightening your hair again?
So I wore the wigs, I would say, for the first 2 years of college. And honestly, no one knew I was rocking the wigs until there was a time when I did tell a friend, well, I thought she was a friend at the time. Yep. So, but I did wear it for the first 2 years. And then when my hair started to grow out, which it was like right at my neck area, I started taking the wigs off and just blowing it out and straightening it every week.
So that was the aha moment, but it's clear within that story that it took some time. Even though that was the moment, the pivotal moment when it changed, it clearly took some time for you to be comfortable with the confidence.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what I was getting ready to ask. How did you overcome this mindset?
Oh, okay. So I think what really happened was when I graduated college, and that's when I ended up moving to Charlotte. I knew that in that point in time, my hair had started growing out, and I was spending more time at home during that summer, kind of seeing like what my hair could really be. And that's when I hopped on YouTube. So a lot of it was curiosity. YouTube University. And it sparked my curiosity. I started just searching like, curly hair care and like how to apply products. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole and found all of like the OG YouTubers and spent a lot of time watching, not necessarily doing anything with my hair yet. But there was a day where I took off my wig and I washed my hair, and I was like, what is this curl pattern? I was like, hold on. So I spent some time. I kind of like it. And I was curious about it, but I was like, I have no clue how to style it though. So that's when I spent more time researching on YouTube. But at that point, I went out and got a half wig that matched my texture to cover up like the rest of my hair. So I only had the bangs and the top to work with. That to me was easier than trying to style my whole head. So I spent time wearing the half wig that was curly, but styling the front of my hair. And the more I got used to that and styling it, then I took off the entire half wig and started styling my whole head. So it was a learning curve for sure. But I figured if I started like small with just a little bit of my hair first, I wouldn't be so overwhelmed.
And then just as time progressed is when you got even more confident. Right. So while you're in this transition, friends and family, what was the response? Did you have to cut anybody off or stop talking to anyone?
So during this time, no, it was one of those things where summer came and I was like, the friends I had were still the friends, like a mixture of high school and college at that time. But summer came and people actually complimented. They were like, oh, I've never seen your hair like that. Or like, what did you do to your hair? That was the question I heard a lot more. It was just like, what happened? Like more of just like, I don't understand what is that your natural hair? Like, what is it? And so people were more curious about it. And when I would explain to them it's my natural curl pattern and I'm just learning to take care of it again, no one really gave me a hard time about it. It wasn't a problem. It was more of just adjusting to seeing myself and them getting used to seeing me that way. And a lot of questions were happening. So it was more of just curiosity.
And I think that that's wonderful because as both of us being naturalistas know, and I have a girlfriend from college where she actually had family members who stopped talking to her. The individual that she was with basically gave her an ultimatum. It's either relax your hair or we can no longer be together.
Oh my gosh.
And for me, I didn't really have any pushback. I told my father, I told my mother. My father, I told him just basically so the next time I showed up to his house, he wouldn't be like, what's going on? Yeah. Of course, my mother was very supportive, but I'm so glad to hear that you really didn't have any pushback.
Yeah, I didn't have pushback, but I will say my dad was more like, I don't understand. Like
my father as well.
But my mom was like, I think it's beautiful. And so, so it was more just kind of like the lack of understanding and asking a lot of questions. But the comments were never like anything intense. I would say I wasn't getting any pushback or cruel comments or anything until I started posting about it. And that's when it became.
Posting with your hair and or the messaging that you're talking about now.
Posting with my hair at that time. So that's kind of what started the content creation journey. I was wanting to document my journey of understanding my hair. And so when I started posting about it, it was two things. Brands started seeing me at that point and when they were like, oh my God, like we would love to like work with you. And that's when I was like, I don't even know what that means because I was so new to content creation. Then on the other hand, there were some sly comments like, oh, that can't be her hair. And just like that's not real. No, I don't think it's beautiful. It looks really messy. So that's when I started noticing, oh, wow. Okay. So there was a reason why I was hiding my hair and this was it. And so it almost made me not want to like show up online with my natural hair, but I decided I was going to keep it going because I immediately remembered what it felt like when my hair fell out in the shower.
Okay, so we were just talking about the transition and the aha moment. Was it harder than you thought it was going to be?
I did. I think the most important part to me was how are people going to perceive me? That was the biggest question I kept asking myself, but it made sense at the time because I was still going through that phase of fear of rejection from my childhood and not wanting people to like kind of walk out of my life. So at that point, other people's opinions mattered more than my own.
What was the most difficult lesson you learned when starting your natural hair journey?
The most difficult lesson I learned was probably being able to go out in public with my natural hair and going into spaces that I normally wouldn't go to. So I would say like large crowds, large events. I caught myself hesitating when I went to a pool party in which I was kind of like, okay, it's a pool party. My hair's curly, like we're good. But I had just applied gel, which at that point I was kind of experimenting. And I was like, oh gosh, if I get in this water, is my hair going to end up frizzy? Are the curls going to like look crazy? And I started spiraling. So I didn't even touch the water. But I would say the hardest part was being able to fully accept myself in that state and to truly feel 100% like powerful, being my most authentic self. Like it was something that kept coming back and coming back. And I think the number one thing I actually ended up feeling like maybe I should go back and bleach my hair.
The bleach keeps coming up.
It was like a safe space. Yeah.
So, and just basically what I'm hearing is that, like you said, the most difficult part was just being out. So you were at the pool party, but you weren't even to fully enjoy yourself, even though you were in that space.
Correct.
So it was being able to go out, but it was also being able to participate in the activities.
Right.
Like a normal person would without even thinking about it.
Correct. Yeah. It was like I was present, but I wasn't able to really be present. Like my head was somewhere else and I was too focused on worrying what if, all these scenarios that could go wrong with my hair, being around water, and also people making comments, or like wanting to come and touch my hair out of curiosity.
We've all been there.
Yes. So it always felt like I couldn't just be myself because why did it have to be a thing? Like why was my hair such an issue or like an item? I felt like the museum artifact where people were just making it a big deal, and which made me even more self-conscious and like kind of questioning my journey. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, hot topic. Weddings.
I'm
pretty sure that you're probably, but I wanted to speak about this because I saw your gorgeous wedding photos.
Oh, thank you.
And I know this was a hot topic for myself as well. There was an individual, there's no need to go over her name, but she basically said or made the statement, do not bring your natural hair to my event. We're all aware of what that was, but I wanted to bring up weddings because I know for myself, when I announced that I was going to be getting married, my mother and I would typically go to Philly. It's like a Mother's Day for that side of the family. We eat, we do all of that. We come together, we tell our stories, all of that. And once I brought up my wedding, there was an individual that was there that was not a part of the family. And once she found out that I was getting married, she's like, okay, you're going to get a weave, you're going to get a wig. Before I could even say anything, my mother was like, she's not doing that. And then the individual got up and left. So I just wanted to ask you, because I noticed that it's pinned at the top of your Instagram. Yeah. Did you feel the pressure, or did you at that point feel like you needed to straighten your hair for your wedding or bleach it? Bleaching seems to be your thing. Yep. Were there any pressures, or how did you feel?
There were zero pressures. By that point, I mean, I was very much into the content journey. I was showing up authentically myself. I didn't have any hesitations. And so I immediately said, the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm rocking the afro. Absolutely. And I knew for my wedding, that was going to be me at my most authentic self. And I wanted to embrace the frizz. I wanted my hair to just let it do what it needs to do. And I was like, whatever it decided to do that day, I was just going to decorate it. I was just going to add some flowers So there were zero comments about my hair. Everyone was excited to see that I wore my natural hair like that. And they were just like, people were saying thank you, for inspiring.
Really? Us to want to rock our hair. Were these Instagram comments or just in general?
In general, okay. Yeah. So a mixture of Instagram comments and a mixture of people that came to the wedding that were just like, we're so happy to see your hair like that.
So in a sense, especially with the Instagram comments, because we all know that, especially when it comes to being a content creator, we kind of cultivate these communities. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, do you feel like you were giving other women permission to be authentic on their wedding day and not feel like they had to get the weave, the wigs, or the extensions?
Absolutely. I knew that the number one thing that I always say, show up as the example you wish to see more of. And so I knew that if I was going to share my journey, which I did share a little bit of the wedding journey and the behind the scenes, I knew that I wanted to let women know that it is 1,000% okay to wear your natural hair to something that is so personal, to something that is yours. And it's a day that is catered to you and a new chapter. And I think that it's important to be able to show up and not feel like you have to put on an outer layer or some kind of shell in order to kind of protect yourself from being perceived. And so in that time, I knew that I wanted to be that example and to let women know that you can rock the fro. Like, the fro is beautiful. And that's something that I am excited to start to see more of, which I have been seeing more of. And kind of, it was intentional too, where I was like, I don't want to define my curls. I want my hair to have fun.
This is South Carolina. There's no need. There's no need.
Yeah, right. Hello. So, I was like, I'm just going to let it flow. And I did. And the feedback was, it was amazing. And women were like, you just inspired me to wear mine. And that's exactly what I wanted to see. And my thought is, if I'm at least helping one person, my job is done. And it ended up doing even better than I thought it would. And the amount of women that were like, that was my sign. So it meant the world to me. And I knew that I was on the right path.
Your husband, I'm assuming he loves the hair.
Yes, he loves the hair.
Has he ever seen your hair straightened? Or straight?
No. Okay. So he did see it for my reception dinner. I wanted to have fun, but what I did was I didn't straighten my hair, but I pulled it back to where it would become straight in the front and rocked a bun for a little bit. And then I actually wore a half wig that was straight. And that was just for fun. Like, because I hadn't put heat on my hair in years. I also wanted to switch it up and do something different for the dinner. And so I did. That was the first time he had seen my hair in that form, which he was like, he loved it, but he was like, nothing's going to compare to your natural hair. Nothing. He was like, you're beautiful either way, but like the curls. And that's why we even got together in the first place, was hair.
It's your hair.
Yeah. And so he is Black and Filipino. So he had a lot of hair, and rocking an afro, all of his brothers. Beautiful hair. So when he saw me on TikTok, he was like, oh no, I have questions. And it was more like, I don't understand how to help my hair in terms of moisture. So he came to my page and genuinely was asking me like, what products are you using? I'm using Cantu. And I was like, kids.
So he reached out to you on TikTok and now y'all are married.
Yeah. And this is the best part. He's from Los Angeles. This man flew across the country for me and ended up moving for me.
Really?
And we met on TikTok.
So it must be meant to be then.
To be.
With the hair. You said he had big hair.
Big hair, yeah. And he recently has been rocking it short though, because he was like, I don't know how you do it. It's a full-time job.
It is. It's a labor of love, but don't get me wrong. I've never said that natural hair does not take a long time. Right. I never said that it was easier. It's a labor of love for me. That's all that I say.
I like that.
But there was another video that talked about your graduation. So you are a pianist.
Yes.
Is that what you went to? Because you got your master's. I know you have the bachelor's, you got your master's. Is that what you went to school for?
So my undergrad was psychology, and then my master's is actually master's in business administration. So it was for entrepreneurship and innovation, because I do own a natural hair brand. I wanted to go back to school to better understand how to run the business, more so on the operations side. Because when I started the business, it was on a whim and I did not know anything about it, and I kind of ran myself into the ground. So going back to school was like something that I was very passionate about, so I could really better understand the back end of it. But that was completely separate from being a pianist. And being a pianist was something I started doing when I was 5. My mom put me in piano because she wanted me to stay busy. I struggled with her being gone all the time, so it kept my brain active.
And the reason why I was asking that is because in one of your videos, you were talking about your master's, and you made it a point, because I saw the bobby pins. Yeah. I love bobby pins. I have 100 in my hair right now. But I was bringing that up because you wanted to make it a point for your bachelor's. You did not wear your natural hair.
Correct.
For your master's, you wanted to make sure. Yes. Why was that important to you?
So for my master's, going to school, I said to myself, I was not ever going to go back when I got my bachelor's. And it was a point in my life that it kind of changed everything for me, because when I went back to get my master's, it was because of my natural hair brand. So I had an attachment, to how I wanted to kind of bring it all together, and why the whole point of me going back was because of hair. And I knew that when I was graduating, my immediate thing was, how am I going to get this cap on my head? Like, I have to show up and represent, with my MBA, because it's the entire reason, my hair is the entire reason I went back, and, to help others learn to love their hair. And so I was like, I have to show up as the example, And so I spent some time online, and I was like, researching, and I finally found Grad Cap Remix, and I ended up working with or purchasing from them and just sharing with everyone how I applied the cap and why I was doing this. And it was worth every ounce of my time and stress, because I was panicking a little bit. But it was really important to me, again, to show up and to not worry about, having super defined hair. I didn't want my curls to have to look a certain way. I just wanted my hair to be. And so I let my hair be, and it was in its fro state, and I had very minimal product in it. And that's honestly like my favorite way to wear my hair. And so I ended up feeling really good about it. When I put the cap on and saw myself with my natural hair and the cap on, I really went back and I was looking at photos of me, graduating with my bachelor's, and I had my super pin straight hair and my cap on, and I was like, well, those are two very different people, two very different confidence levels, and it meant the world to me. And so that day was very important to me, and people loved it, and they were just like, I love that you did that, and how are you even holding it on there? Like,
I know that was a question. So it was a full circle moment.
It was a full circle moment. Yeah, it was a pivotal moment. And I remember when my husband was taking my photos, and I was holding up my degree, and he was just like in awe. And it was just one of those moments of just like, your hair is beautiful. And just hearing that made me feel so good, which also full circle of just going back to comments, of people being like, oh, it looks messy, or like, I think it's just, it looks better if it's straight, when I've heard things like that online.
So there was another video, and I love this video as well, and I'll see if I can find it, but it's a video basically where you were strutting through your house, but you were showing up to different events. Yeah. Is it important for you to show up with your natural hair to events or just anywhere?
Absolutely. And I will keep repeating it and keep making videos like that, because I know that there's so many people that don't feel that their natural hair is appropriate, that it needs to be tamed, or it needs to be sleek, or that it's not professional. And I think the number one thing that my goal to help individuals, it really is to continue to show up and to take up space, because your most authentic self is always going to be more than enough. And it's really easy to give in, to what we've been told and what we see online and with mainstream media, with Hollywood, and kind of subconsciously, I think a lot of us have been like, okay, like this is what's considered beautiful. I feel like this is where I need to be in order to, to make it online or in order to be perceived as someone professional. And so I think that it's important to kind of like make noise and to make some groundbreaking moves and to show up. And even if it's uncomfortable, when you start showing up, and a lot of it is just internal and mindset,
Yes.
When you show up and you're uncomfortable, but you're holding your head up, you're making eye contact, it is way more powerful than people realize. Even if you're like kind of shy about it and you're nervous, you're making an impact, and it's a power move, and it's a stance, and it's something that people notice. So I think it's important to show up like that, because you're letting other people know, like, dang, if she can do it, I can do it.
She walked in here with her natural hair, so I can do the same.
Absolutely. So again, like showing up as the example, you never know who's watching and you never know who you're inspiring. And just because someone doesn't say anything to you doesn't mean they're going to go home the next day and show up themselves as well.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely important.
So what would be your advice to women who are trying to embrace or looking to embrace their natural beauty?
I would definitely say, so something that's important is I never say it's an overnight fix. We're not going to go from, wearing straight hair or wearing wigs, if that's what we're used to tomorrow we're just going to start embracing our natural hair. It is very much a journey for a reason. But I always like to say, it's an adjustment. Our natural hair can be an adjustment, but it is not a burden.
I like that.
Yeah. And so I think it's those little reminders that you have to continue to tell yourself, but a lot of the work is always going to be internal. So I always say that foundation is not going to be a product. It's not going to be, some kind of hairbrush. It's going to be the relationship you have with your natural hair. And so I always tell people to name their hair, because when you do that, you're able to almost, it's another being. It's someone that you're going to take care of. It's someone that's going to take care of you. So treat your hair the way you want to be treated as a person. And you're going to see a lot of things start to change. And a lot of that is just, that's a relationship. And when you treat your hair like that, you're going to start seeing change and growth. And you're going to be more comfortable with the bad hair days where you're like, oh my God, I just applied all this product and I didn't like the way it turned out.
I just wrap it up. I just throw on a head wrap. If I'm having a bad hair day, I will throw a head wrap on in a second.
But you know what though? In that moment though, you're not saying to yourself, oh, I can't stand my hair. It's just one of those things where it's an adjustment.
It's an adjustment. I adjusted to my head wrap and I still look fabulous.
Okay.
So I named my bags. I have not named my hair yet. What is your hair's name?
Tina.
Okay.
I named her after Tina Turner.
I was just getting ready to ask that.
Absolutely. And that's one of my favorite movies and I love watching it.
And she's definitely against the grain as well.
100%.
So you've been going through this journey, and I know there are a lot of naturalistas who are probably going to be able to understand where you're coming from, or they have similar stories. Corporate.
Oh, corporate.
Mm-hmm. Had you ever worked in corporate?
Yes, so I have worked in corporate. My very first job when I graduated with my bachelor's was working for an accounting firm, tax and accounting. So it was interesting. That was when my curls were blonde. At that point, so I ended up just rocking my hair unapologetically in there, and I didn't think anything of it. And it wasn't that job I didn't have issues with. I mean, people were asking me questions and they were curious. But it wasn't until I had another job, and that was actually like the last job that I worked, and it really, it shined a light. It was one of those things where, we were out at an event and water was involved. And so I was busy talking with some people, and an individual from the boat just wanted me to hop on the boat and go for a ride with everyone else and to really participate and be part of the team. And I was all for that, but I was just mid-conversation with someone, so I didn't want to just up and leave the conversation. And so I was like, oh, no, thank you. And, he screamed back and he was just like, oh, you don't want to mess up that hair. And I the quotations and I was like, excuse me, just make sure I heard him right. He was just like, I know how you can be. And that's when it really struck me. And I was like, oh, I see where this is going. So I ended up going back to my conversation and just completely, because we were yelling across from a house to the water. He was down there on the boat. I was not about to have this conversation screaming back and forth with this person. And so he ended up standing there waiting, and I just went back to my conversation, and it ended up that I could tell that was the day that everything changed with how I was being treated. So I thought that was very interesting. And so the person was caught off guard, though, that I was talking to, and, you know, that whole thing. So it's kind of like, are you okay? Like, what was that? And I was like, I'm fine. You know, we really don't need to get into it. And it was one of those moments where I didn't feel comfortable or safe having those vulnerable conversations with anyone there. And so in that moment, I was like, wow, it really is. It's important to understand that it's not ever going to go away. Like, you're never going to be able to please every single person in this world. But in that moment, I really felt more empowered in the sense of, like, you know what, like, this is the hair I was quite literally born with. You know, I'm going to rock it proudly, and I'm not going to let anyone make me feel badly about it or uncomfortable, but I am going to acknowledge it and be able to take that with me as a way, as a reminder of just, like, you know, I'm not going to let how other people choose to perceive me affect me. The only thing that matters is how, you know, I respond. And so in that moment, a few days later, that's when I realized things were still kind of progressing in a negative way. I was being pointed out. I was being told I need to make more of an effort and, you know, talk to the boss. I need to do this. You know, it was always an issue, that I was always a problem. And that was the same day that I packed up my entire desk. I didn't say a word to anybody. Packed up my whole desk and I left, and I never went back. And
you didn't give 2 weeks notice?
I give 2 seconds notice. Okay. Like, I walked straight out that door. And when I walked out that door, I can't even tell you how good that felt. It was the biggest relief. I had a big smile on my face, and I felt so good about myself. And I was like, no, like, that needed to happen, you know? And, you know, and it ended up working out. And I ended up, you know, figuring out for myself what really needed to be in place was I need to focus on my journey, my content creation, showing up online, you know, and helping others not letting stuff like this get to them. And it just kind of, it empowered me.
So, and I think that part is great. And that's the reason why I wanted you to tell the story, because I was going to bring it back to your aha moment, to see if it kind of like pulled you back in.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you felt empowered. And this is how you knew that you were on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, you know what, I want other people to know. And I was sharing kind of like, showing up with your natural hair at work. It was something that I was already talking about, and it just paved the path. And I was like, this is where I need to be. And this is the type of content that I need to talk about. And I'm starting to stray away from more like applying products or like product application and stuff like that. Yeah. And focusing more on that empowerment, the mental part, and really being able to show up and understanding how much power the mind has. I mean, people underestimate it.
Okay, so let people know what you have going on and more about yourself and your company.
So my name is Aly. I go by Naturally Aly online, and I am a natural hair content creator, but I tie in mental health and natural hair. So when I started my company, BioCurlz, which I started on my living room couch with a pen and paper one random evening, I had a passion, and the passion was to make an impact in my community in a way that's going to make men, women, children feel empowered to show up as their most authentic selves. And so I currently have BioCurlz on pause, working on my new website, and that should be running in 2025. And so I am excited about it, but this is going to be centered around the mental health component surrounding, you know, loving our natural hair.
Thank you for watching this episode with Aly Masters, where she talks to us about her natural hair journey. However, we do want to extend the conversation surrounding more uncomfortable topics. So stay tuned for part 2.